You are listening to Smart Women's Dating Podcast, episode number 50. Welcome to Smart Women's Dating Podcast. I am your host, certified life coach Lærke Nielsen, and I help smart, independent women attract the love they deeply desire without having to chase or settle. This podcast will give you the mindset tools and insights you need to finally crack the code to your love life. Are you ready? Then let's go! Hey there! Have you ever sat in a cafe or bar waiting for someone or waiting for a train or something where you had the time to just look around and then your attention got caught by two people, maybe a couple, standing or sitting somewhere not far from you but too far for you to be able to hear what they say, and then you just can't help watching their gestures and facial expressions and try to figure out what's going on between them? Who is the one in power and who is most into the other? This can actually be a lot of fun. I highly encourage you to do so if you're in a place where you have to wait and you have the time. You can tell a lot from a person's gestures and expressions. Now, this can of course also be applied in dating, and that's when it starts to become really fun and useful. Reading or deciphering the signals that a man you are on a date with is unconsciously sending you all the time. And if you want to step up the game even more, you can use his cues to guide yourself in what cues you can send to him to create synergy and harmony between you. And that's when it suddenly feels like you know a secret language. So you're in it for a treat with this episode, because today I'm jumping into teaching you a few things about nonverbal cues or signals, body language, even though I'm not an expert in this field and it's not really coaching. But I've done some research and put together the result of that to show you what to look for, what the different signs mean, and how to see if a man is into you, maybe even before he knows it himself. You can of course use this knowledge to read him on an unconscious level, but you can also use it to signal your own interest in him without saying it in words. And you can use it for fun to observe others. And with all the Christmas parties coming up, I'm sure you're going to have a lot of possibilities to observe the nonverbal language of your colleagues, friends, or strangers and try to guess what's really going on between two people. So in today's episode, I will share with you a lot of nonverbal signs, actually 21 signs, that can tell you if he could be interested in you. And I'll give you 8 cues that you can try to play with on purpose to show him that you are interested in him. And also, I will say a few words about confidence and how to convey confidence in nonverbal cues, because confidence is a big part of being perceived as attractive. But first, a few words about body language in general. There's a lot of sayings around how many percentage of our communication is really done with nonverbal language, almost to the point that it doesn't matter what you say, because the nonverbal language is so much more important. And of course, it's easier to lie in words than with your facial expression and your body language. So that in itself leads you to trust the nonverbal language more. But I'm not really sure it's that scientific to speak about a precise percentage. But most sources say that the nonverbal cues weigh more than the verbal, so it's at least over 50%. I think what's important to retain from this is that when there is a lack of alignment between the verbal and the nonverbal language, it's natural for us to trust the nonverbal language more than we trust words. And this goes well together with what I always teach: look for alignment between words and actions from a man. And if the alignment is not there, he doesn't do what he says he will do, then it's his actions you want to trust the most, not his words. Again, it's easy to lie in words, less so in actions. And according to several sources, women are in general better at reading body language than men. It seems our brain is to a higher extent wired for social interaction, and therefore we are better at picking this up. So I personally have my doubts when it comes to myself. I was never good at this when I was younger. I couldn't tell if a man was interested and what his gestures actually meant. So I think this thing about women being better at it, that should be taken with a grain of salt. But what is true is that both men and women send out very subtle cues when we are interested in someone, and sometimes even before we know it ourselves. And I'm convinced, but I don't have data to back this up, that is more often than not the woman who chooses the man. He just doesn't know. We have so many subtle ways of signaling non-verbally that we are open and interested, and then we kind of just pull him over with an invisible string, and he think it was his idea all along. Well, that's just my theory, and I might be wrong. When we meet someone new, we quickly pick up on a lot of nonverbal cues even before we start a conversation. We check if their appearance shows signs of them being a healthy person, being well-mannered, well-groomed, like having clean teeth when they smile, clean clothes, and their hair looks okay, and whether they behave in a respectful way, and if we find their face to be attractive. This is very instinctive in us, and we can even see this in animals as well. For instance, the female lion is more naturally attracted to male lions with a certain kind of traits that show he is healthy and in power. So when we meet someone new who could be a potential romantic match, we start by scanning their face, and it goes like this: eye, to nose, to mouth, to throat, and back to eye again. So it's like a triangle. And this is just initial observation. It doesn't actually say anything about whether he's interested or not. So what are then the 21 nonverbal cues that could show you if he's interested in you? Let's go. Number 1. If you imagine that you see him from a distance, he makes sustained eye contact, and he might do this repeatedly. That is a clear sign that something is going on. If he also checks out your face and your body, it's a good sign. And yes, I know that could sound a bit icky, but a quick glance on your face and your body is a sign that he is interested. Number 2 is parted lips. You can check this if you have sustained eye contact. Does his lips part? That also shows he's interested and open. Number 3 is if he's standing up somewhere, he will straighten his back, he will take up more space, and maybe he will separate himself a little bit from his group, or at least he will make sure that he's pointing towards you. Number 4 is he's rearranging his clothes. So, of course, that depends on what he's wearing. It could be in different ways, but the classic one is apparently socks and ties for men. Checking that and checking a reflective surface like a window just to see that he looks good for you. So now you can imagine you're moving closer to each other and you're starting a conversation. And that leads me to number 5. You want to pay attention to his gestures because they say a lot. If he's reaching out, either by stretching a foot or if his hand gestures are reaching towards you, that is showing his interest and is almost like saying, I wish we were closer now. Number 6 is getting tactile, so touching things like coffee cup, water glass, anything on a table. When we get tactile, it's a sign that we feel comfortable. And number 7 is dilated pupils. And this might be hard to see, especially if it's dark. You can't really say, are his pupils dilated for one or the other reason? But it is a scientific fact and is something that is unconsciously driven. And we can even observe this with babies. We dilate the pupils when we see someone or something that we like. And it could be even before we know if we like them, but where we just like the way they look. Number 8 is he has slightly raised eyebrows. That's a sign of interest. And number 9 is flared nostrils. Now, that doesn't sound very charming, but yes, it's a sign of interest and excitement. And according to some sources, it's in order to take in more of your pheromones, to be able to smell you more. So, number 10 is he has an open body language facing towards you, ventral fronting as it's called. That shows trust and interest. And you can see that when you imagine the opposite. We instinctively turn our side or back to someone we don't like and don't want to engage with. So he will, with this ventral fronting, not only try to connect, but also maybe even trying to have you to himself. So standing in a position that makes it difficult for others to enter the conversation. Number 11 is that his feet are pointing towards you, and that is whether he's standing or sitting. That shows that he's interested in you, even if he's looking somewhere else. And number 12 is about proximity. If you're both standing up somewhere, he will move closer to you. And if you're sitting down, he might be leaning in. This is a desire to pay closer attention and be closer to you while excluding the rest of the world. Number 13, he smiles at you. That is, of course, not a big surprise. It shows interest and openness. It doesn't necessarily show that he's romantically interested, but in combination with some of the other signs, of course, it's a positive indication. And I chose to include it because it's important, even if you already know this. Number 14 is tilting of the head. Now, this is mostly done by women, but it can be done by men too. And it's a sign of trust because you're being vulnerable when your throat is showing. Number 15 is faster heartbeat. And how will you know that? Well, you have to take his pulse to check, and this is of course not possible. So this is just on the list because it's a fact, but it's very difficult for you to check. Number 16 is blushing. Of course, if someone is blushing when they see you, you know that something is going on. Number 17 is touching the hair, running a hand through the hair to make sure it looks good and fresh. This is also something that women do a lot, like twisting a lock of hair or playing with the hair while we are talking to someone. Number 18 is brief moments of light physical touch, like his hand on your elbow or your back when moving past you. We're not talking any vulgar or exaggerated touch here. It's just a brief signaling that he wants to be physical with you. Number 19 is he will have more facial expressions when he speaks to you. He will be more expressive. And if you never met him before, you can of course say it's difficult to identify. But imagine that you are in a group of people, you might notice if he's showing less expression when talking to others than when he's talking to you. And then there's number 20, which is a big one, that is mirroring. And this is very fun to observe. It's something that we all do. We mirror the movements of a person that we like and respect. And it can even be a co-worker or a friend. It's not only in a romantic context. It shows synchronicity. We bring harmony into the connection. We say, I agree with you when we do that. But in many cases, we're not even aware of it. Try to notice that when you go to a meeting, for instance, or you're in a group of friends, or, of course, on a date as well. It's not only in the movements that we mirror each other, it can also be in the tone of voice, it can be in the choice of words, and when to laugh, for instance. It's actually very characteristic when you think of it. I think we all have experienced this kind of meetings where there is one of the big bosses present, the CEO or whatever, and once they say a joke, everyone will laugh, even if it's not actually that funny. And that brings me to the last one, number 21, simultaneous laughter. That is a very good nonverbal sign that there is harmony between you. And there's something important to be said about humor, and I'm sure when you hear this, you will say you already knew this intuitively. Women really like a man who can make them laugh. Humor is perceived as a sign of intelligence and creativity, among other things. Humor production, meaning saying funny comments or joking about something, is considered very attractive by most women. On the other hand, men really like a woman who will laugh at his jokes. Humor appreciation. You laugh, you giggle, you smile. You getting the joke and finding it funny is a compliment to him. So, what are then some female cues, ways to signal to his unconscious that you are interested? It's a lot of the same things, but here I've listed 8 things that you can try to play with on purpose if you feel like. But just be aware for all of these that it's important not to exaggerate it. It has to be very subtle. Otherwise, you can imagine it becomes weird and awkward. So the first one is sustained eye contact and smile, and that one always works. If he's available and he's interested, he will definitely react to that. And sometimes you need to do it more than once, and then you clearly show him that you are interested in him. But again, don't stare at him. That's gonna freak him out. Number 2 is fondling with your hair while in a conversation with him, twisting your hair, and then when you do that, try to turn your wrist towards him. That is supposed to be a really good sign that you are into him, showing your wrist. And the third one is mirroring his movements. That's an easy one to do, but also here, don't exaggerate it. It would be very annoying if someone did that, actually a little bit weird. And then the fourth, licking your lips. Yes, I know. I'm giving you all of them here, but you gotta imagine this in a very subtle, discreet way, not a vulgar way. And it's coming up as one of the signs that shows that you're interested. The fifth cue you can try is tilting your head, like showing him that now I'm listening really deeply to what you're saying and you have my full attention. And number 6 is sitting or standing in an open body position. And this doesn't mean you can't cross your legs while you're sitting. This is usually the most comfortable way to sit, especially if you're wearing a skirt. So don't worry about that, but you can have an open position with your shoulders, for instance. And then number 7 is laugh and giggle when he says something funny. Of course, only if you like him and you actually think it's funny. Don't be weird about it, but show him that you get his jokes and you like them too. And the last one, number 8, is accidentally touching him light when passing by or just to get his attention. You can, for instance, imagine a situation where you put his hand on his arm and you point in a direction to tell him that something is happening over there. If you want to try doing this on purpose, then have fun with it, be playful, and don't exaggerate. And here, as I promised, is a few tips about how to signal more confidence. You want to be comfortable keeping eye contact and also look around you. People with great confidence are not avoiding eye contact with other people in the room. So notice if you do that and practice being comfortable making eye contact with whoever is around you. And then you want to walk and move like you know where you're going. You are on a mission. Not trying to hurry, but knowing your end goal. So in a natural pace and without hesitation. And confidence is not about being loud and attracting attention like that. It can be a very quiet confidence as well. And one thing that signals confidence very clearly is having what is called temporal control. And that means taking your time. Take time to answer questions. Be okay to pause when you're saying something. And don't talk fast. When you're not in a hurry when you talk, it shows self-control and that you don't fear that someone is going to interrupt you if you don't finish soon. Also, slowing down is very much aligned with feminine energy. You are not in a rush and you know you are worth his time. So you can think of mixing this in with the signals that show him interest. And studies show that most men prefer women who are open to connect and flirt over women who are very beautiful. It's as simple as that. It's more fun to engage with a woman who engages back than a beautiful statue. So let go of your perfectionism and practice flirting instead. It's in your energy, the openness, the warmth, the playfulness, because flirting is in a way just playing. And this is what attracts a man and makes him want to spend time with you in the first place. This is all something that can be conveyed by nonverbal cues. Your smile, the eye contact, the laughing, the light touch, and so on. And then you can get more serious and have deep conversations with him at a later stage. It's not like you're always supposed to be fun and playful and flirty. Of course, you want to show the other sides of you as well. So now you know a lot about body language and nonverbal cues. So you can start by practicing reading other people and then see if it feels natural for you to play with some of these cues yourself. In all cases, it's good entertainment if you're at a party and you have a moment where you don't feel like talking to anyone. Just observing someone else interact will provide you a great chance to learn a lot. So this is what I had for you today, and I'm of course back again next Thursday with another episode. And as always, my doors are open for women who want to know what it's like to coach with me. I have a few available spots at the moment, so book a free call on the link in the show notes or on my website, lærkethelovecoach.com. And in the meantime, have fun with the nonverbal cues and enjoy dating. If you like what you're hearing on this podcast and you want to get support from a coach on your love journey, I invite you to book a free consult call with me. You will find the link in the show notes. And also, don't forget to subscribe, and I would love it if you would rate and review this podcast, and then you'll also help other women find it.